Chapter 3 In-Flight Reverie. Settled into my window seat on the Qantas A330, I fastened my seatbelt with a familiar click and let the low hum of the engines wash over me like a lullaby, equal parts clouds and machinery. As we begin to taxi, I steal one last glance at Melbourne, my starting point, my launch pad, a brief farewell to my everyday life, both bustling and beautifully mundane. Then, with a graceful tilt, we lift. Melbourne slips away like a watercolor painting rinsed from the page, grids of suburbs, tiny ants that are actually cars, rooftops flashing in the sun like scattered confetti, all gradually swallowed by the sky. As we climb higher, the clouds rise to greet us like old friends, pillowy, patient, ever drifting. Our flight arcs across the vast inland of Australia, its immensity unfolding beneath me like a sun-warmed map. From Melbourne to the far northern tip of Cape York, we spend nearly 4 hours still within Australia's embrace, over 2,900 kilometers, farther than the stretch from London to Moscow, crossing what would be most of Europe. Only then does the land give way to the glinting coral sea, a quick shimmer of turquoise below. Soon, the green folds of Papua New Guinea drift past, and we cross the invisible thread of the equator. Ahead, the North Pacific opens, endless and unbroken. A 4,000-kilometer stretch of blue with nothing beneath but water, depth, and the slow passage of time. Hours later, Japan appears, first the faint outline of islands, then the steady sprawl of cities, until we slip quietly into Tokyo's airspace. 10.5 hours, measured not just in distance, but in clouds, oceans, and the gentle hum that carries me from one world to another. With that much time to myself, my imagination tends to slip off its seatbelt and wander away. I rest my chin in my hand, my signature thinking pose, like Rodin's The Thinker, except I'm fully clothed, not butt naked on a rock, obviously. Elegance with dignity, thank you. I gaze out the window. The horizon stretches endlessly, and the clouds below look like soft pillows piled high, like the sky is making its bed. So plush, so quiet, so dreamlike. And just like that, I start drifting. Australia and Japan, over 8,000 kilometers apart. These days, we just hop on a plane, plug in our headphones, and boom, we're on the other side of the world before dinner. Miraculous, really. But we rarely stop to marvel at it. We forget that this flying metal bird is the result of generations of engineering, imagination, and impossible dreams. But what if I weren't flying today? What if this were 100 years ago? What if I wanted to travel from Melbourne to Tokyo in the 1920s? I close my eyes. No direct flights, no neck pillows, only ships, grand ocean liner ships. I picture myself aboard one, en route to Japan. Not just any ship, a Titanic-style voyage. Oh, how wonderful and romantic. I've always adored the film Titanic, James Cameron's 1997 masterpiece. Leonardo DiCaprio as Jack, Kate Winslet as Rose. Two souls from different worlds colliding in a moment of fate. I've watched it more times than I can count, and I still weep at the end, every single time. The fantasy voyage. Naturally, I cast myself as Rose, young, graceful, mysteriously melancholic, draped in a stylish Edwardian white lady suit, elegant, timeless. The jacket is tailored high at the waist, with deep purple lapels that whisper wealth. The skirt sweeps dramatically across the deck with every step. My hair is styled in a classic Gibson updo, the height of sophistication. Atop my head, a wide-brimmed white hat adorned with soft feathers and a satin ribbon. White gloves protect my delicate hands, unfamiliar with such vulgar tasks as dishwashing or laundry. The heaviest thing I lift? A champagne flute, naturally. I imagine myself standing at the dock, parasol in hand, gazing up at the ship, admiring its scale, its grandeur, its promise of escape and reinvention. Luggage? Oh, please. Not just one 30-kilo Qantas-approved carry-on. I have trunks, plural, stacked like a fashion archive, carried aboard by uniformed porters, each trunk packed with dresses, some for morning tea, some for afternoon strolls, and others reserved strictly for dramatic moonlit reflections on the meaning of life. I'd likely board from Melbourne with P&O, the Peninsular and Oriental Steam Navigation Company favored by the British elite, or perhaps the NYK line, proudly Japanese. The route would be long and glamorous with stops in Sydney, Brisbane, Singapore, and Hong Kong before finally docking in Yokohama, Tokyo's main gateway to the world. As a first-class passenger, I'd be treated like royalty aboard this floating palace. The voyage? 4 to 6 weeks of elegance, orchestras, and emotional monologues on the upper deck. Life on board in first class. My cabin is a floating boudoir, in the morning my personal maid drawing open the curtains. Warm sea breeze and golden sunlight drift in. I stretch beneath linen sheets, yawn and wonder what silk to wear for breakfast. Breakfast might be served in my room or in the first-class dining saloon. The menu? Oh, only a casual spread. Omelettes, grilled kippers, toast croissants, sausages, muffins, puffed rice, porridge, and fresh fruits. All of it served on fine china, of course. Then comes a proper morning routine. A visit to the gymnasium to ride the electric camel or electric horse, or perhaps the Turkish baths for a steam and massage, or maybe I just take a stroll on the promenade deck with my parasol, nodding politely at fellow high society travelers. Always graceful, always refined. There's also the ladies' reading and writing room, perfect for sketching, journaling, or secretly observing people while pretending to write postcards. By noon, it's lunch in the Café Parisien, light finger sandwiches, French pastries, perhaps a delicate consommé or poached salmon, and a chance to accidentally overhear some juicy upper deck gossip. Afternoons are for tea, naturally, served with delicate cakes and gentle chamber music, in sun-dappled lounge as ship's orchestra plays something wistful in E minor, perfect for a slow, salt-scented daydream drifting across the sea. Later, I return to my suite to prepare for the evening, because on a ship like this, night is everything. Morning promenades and polite afternoon chatter? Just warm-up acts. Elaborate appetizers for the real performance, dinner, and what follows. And on vessels of this stature, you must be perfect from head to toe, no exceptions. Maintaining appearances is a matter of social survival. Your image is your currency. Any wardrobe malfunction, a crooked hem, a torn seam, a hat feather deciding to stage a dramatic escape would be a scandal. You could become the main course of breakfast gossip the next morning. And in first class, gossip spreads faster than the Wall Street crash on the Black Monday. Dressing for dinner can take a full hour, sometimes more. After all, a first-class lady never rushes into greatness. My personal maid assists me, because frankly, this is not a one-woman job. First, a proper facial powdering, rouge delicately applied to the cheeks, lips tinted a modest rose, and then the corset, a miracle of design and cruelty, cinching the waist into submission and restricting the lungs just enough to make one's speech soft, delicate, and slightly breathless. No wonder Edwardian women always speak gracefully and sounded so refined. It's hard to raise your voice when your ribs are being hugged by reinforced whalebone. The scent you wear is your opening statement. It must speak before you do. A whisper of lavender water on the wrists, a delicate trace of perfume behind each ear. Let your fragrance arrive a heartbeat ahead, like a soft prelude announcing your presence. Invisible, yes, but far from unnoticed, it lingers in memory, leaving someone recalling your presence long after you've drifted away. Then come the accessories, though really they're necessities. A shimmer of jewels, gloves so pristine they might faint at the sight of dust, a fan for both breeze and intrigue, and a dainty reticule, more ornament than container, barely large enough for a single useful item but indispensable for the look. One by one, the maid fastens each in place, the final touches to a carefully composed portrait. A final glance in the mirror. Voila, a work of art, assembled with care, patience, and a mild inability to breathe. Tonight, I wear deep violet silk, sequined just enough to flirt with candlelight. The gown features puffed sleeves and a graceful empire waistline. A matching ribbon weaves through my curls, which fall like soft waves, artfully casual, of course. I look elegant, like someone from a portrait or the opening scene of a novel that begins at sea. And what's around my neck? Yes, that necklace, the heart of the ocean. Blue, dazzling, cinematic, more spellbinding than the night sky. No girl could resist it, certainly not me. The real first-class hours. Dinner begins at 7 p.m. beneath grand chandeliers. The first-class dining saloon on D-deck is an architectural marvel. 114 feet long, 92 feet wide, over 1,000 square meters, the largest dining room ever to sail in 1912, with seating for over 500 guests. I descend the staircase, and immediately a steward greets me with a crisp bow.
"Good evening, miss,"
he says. He offers his arm and escorts me to my table, guiding me through a soft hum of conversation, the delicate clink of silverware, and the gentle strains of the string quartet. The room glows, polished wood, pristine linen, candlelight shimmering in crystal. The air carries the faint scent of roasted meats and warm bread. The kitchen is run by some of Europe's finest chefs, masters of French technique and British refinement. Every dish is a miniature masterpiece, seasoned perfectly, plated like art, and served as if each guest is the most important person on board. Tonight, I order vol au vent financière for my entree, then roast lamb with mint sauce, and of course, crème brûlée for dessert. Perhaps a refreshing punch romaine between courses. Everything gleams. Every fork sits exactly where it should. Even the butter looks smug. As I dine, I chat with other ladies and gentlemen at nearby tables. Conversation ranges from politics and stock markets to art, weather, and whether Paris or Vienna boasts the better opera. It's always Paris, but I let the Austrian couple have their moment, since I am so gracious and elegantly polite. By 8:30 p.m., dinner winds down. Guests drift toward the decks or the lounges. I make straight onto the deck for the open air. On the Titanic, there's the first-class smoking room, a gentleman-only sanctuary for cigars, cards, and brandy. But elsewhere on board, women light up freely, even in the dining saloon, which means the air is already thick with tobacco before dessert even arrives. Part of me wants to lean over to the woman at the next table and shout, "Secondhand smoke is dangerous. This is indoors. We're both going to get lung cancer." But then I remember, it's the 1920s. No one knows. There are no gruesome cigarette packages with photos of rotten teeth or gangrenous toes to warn people. And besides, shouting would earn me bewildered stares and risk smudging the foundation I spent an hour perfecting. That would be the true tragedy. The smell clings to the air like invisible wallpaper. Each exhale is a tiny assault on my nostrils. My corset, laced so tightly that it limits my breathing, becomes an accidental lung protector, allowing only shallow breaths. I suppose that means I'm merely courting pharyngeal cancer, not cancer deep in my lung. How lucky. Still, I clear my throat now and then and wave my fan delicately, like a lace-trimmed air purifier, sweeping the smoke aside. I make sure to do it with the elegance of a butterfly's wing beat, graceful, measured, every inch the refined first-class young lady. Wait, why am I worrying about smoking hazards in a daydream? I suppose it's because I'm a health-conscious person. I exercise regularly and try to eat healthy, yes, even the classic apple-a-day trick. And yes, I'm aware, in Chapter 1, you all saw me slathering a scandalous amount of jam on my toast at breakfast. Not exactly low GI behavior. And not an apple in sight. All right, I said I'd try, didn't I? Life gets hectic, and sometimes you have to compromise. Like this morning, when catching the plane took priority over perfect nutrition. Some weeks, if I'm honest, there are more compromise days than routine days, especially when work gets busy. Still, I do my best. So, fresh apple if possible, apple pie in emergencies. Oh, how I love apple pie. Wait, where was I? Right, fresh air. Finally, I step onto the deck, a pocket of quiet to clear my head and settle my thoughts. The air is crisp, the sea calm, deep, and impossibly beautiful. A crescent moon hangs above, casting a silver pathway across the water. The ocean smells of salt and steel, tinged with a sweetness I can't quite name. The stars scatter like ancient whispers across the black sky. And yet, around my neck, the heart of the ocean outshines them all, blue fire against the velvet night. Then, 9 p.m., the moment. The grandest scene of the day, the formal dance in the first-class lounge. Spotlight, please. A fairy tale, a scene I've rehearsed far too many times in my head as I grew up watching Disney movies. I, Liliko, make my entrance like a mosaic of every Disney princess I've ever adored. Snow White's innocence, Cinderella's grace, Ariel's sense of wonder, Elsa's composure, minus the ice powers. Oh, okay. Maybe I'm being dramatic, but let me have this moment, please. After all, this is my daydream. I descend the grand staircase, one hand gliding along the carved oak banister. Above me, the glass dome casts a golden light, making each polished step glow. I feel eyes on me, not envy, but quiet admiration, the kind that lingers without needing to be spoken. The candlelight catches in the folds of my gown, gliding over silk like liquid gold. Every ripple and shadow feels intentional, as if the light itself were in on my secret. Behind me, my train trails with the unhurried grace of the first line in a beloved novel, an opening that invites curiosity, promising the rest of the story will be worth following. Each step I take seems to turn a page, and in this moment, I am both the storyteller and the tale. The first-class dining saloon is no longer for dinner, it's now a ballroom. Chandeliers shimmer overhead. The orchestra plays a lilting waltz. I pause near the musicians, pretending not to notice the glances. A young gentleman steps forward, then another. Each offers a hand, each asks for a dance. Will I accept? Gloved hand extended, allowing a kiss on the fingertips before gliding across the floor like a woman made of music? Or will I wait for Jack to emerge from the crowd? Leonardo DiCaprio, young, impossibly handsome. That look, like he's already writing poetry with his eyes. Those eyes, that quiet mischief, that reckless romantic hope. How could anyone resist? I sigh, fingertips brushing the heart of the ocean. Back to reality. Excuse me, miss. What would you like for lunch? I blink, slowly returning to the present. My fingers are still resting delicately on my chest, as if clutching the heart of the ocean. Most gladly, I murmur. Vol au vent financière for entrée, followed by roast lamb with mint sauce and crème brûlée for dessert. I say it with the poise of a first-class passenger and the awareness of someone only half awake. The flight attendant blinks back. We have chicken pasta or beef curry, she replies. And a tub of yogurt. No crème brûlée, I'm afraid. I jolt from my Titanic first-class daydream straight back into Qantas economy reality. My cheeks flush. Oh, embarrassed. Chicken pasta, please. As I unwrap the foil lid and peel back the plastic film, I feel so embarrassed and yet can't stop laughing quietly to myself. Here I am, seated in economy, ordering like I'm dining at the Ritz. Daydreams really do have a mind of their own. But hey, dreaming doesn't cost extra. And this one was first class all the way. How delightful it is, slipping into a fantasy, twirling in the spotlight, playing the Disney princesses I grew up admiring and dreaming to be. But alas, it's time to drop anchor for tonight. My Titanic daydream has carried me far, and the clock has sailed ahead without me noticing. Rest assured, we'll continue this voyage soon, right where the tide last carried us. If you enjoyed sailing through this little escape with me, please subscribe and tap the bell so you'll be here when our next chapter sets sail. And if you'd like to keep this little friendship afloat, please like this video and share it with others. Good night. Have a sweet and wonderful dream.